Hey you all, Carpetbagger here, coming to you live from the South, more specifically St. Augustine, Florida, America's oldest city. And we are here at America's oldest wax museum. Potter's was the longest running wax museum in America. It has always been at St. Augustine. It's moved around to several different locations, currently residing in an 1880s era drugstore here on the corner. I have visited here before, but it's been a couple years, so I wanted to stop back in to see what was new, what was old inside Potter's Wax Museum. So please, follow me. Alright, so let's step foot in the old drugstore that is now America's oldest wax museum.
Hello, welcome to Potter's Wax Museum at Gilbert.
Look at this right here. It says, notice, this very elaborate pile is erected in memory of Tolamato, a Seminole Indian chief. Some spelling errors there. It says he was a good-hearted chief. He would not take your scalp without you begged him to do so or paid him some money. Always asked more, or always acted more like a Christian gentleman than a savage Indian. What on earth is this? You can see some of the old medicines left over from when it was a drugstore. You gotta get some Harder's lung balm. You always gotta slather your lungs with some balm. Caution, poison if taken internally. How else are you supposed to take it? I don't know, I would just avoid taking it altogether, considering the largest word on the bottle is poison. There is some old glasses here. This is Hobson's tooth soap. It's not like toothpaste? Is that the same thing? I mean, toothpaste essentially is tooth soap, right? Some faces to touch here. I'm just guessing, I think that is Robin Williams? Mm-hmm. Oh, I was right.
We use medical prosthetics for their eyes and teeth and real human hair in their scalp. Our contemporary figures are over there with our wax studio, and the historical guys are over there. And
here is the founder of modern nursing, Florence Nightingale, a true hero. Here is Marie Curie. She's very famous for her studies of radioactivity, but you don't want to stand too close because unfortunately during her studies she became radioactive herself. This is Josephine Tussaud. She's the great-great-granddaughter of Marie Tussaud, as it explains right here. And it even gives a shout out to Josephine Tussaud's Wax Museum in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Another one of my favorite wax museums. Some other severed heads up here. We have Admiral Horatio Nelson, famed British naval hero. There we have Andrew Johnson, John Paul Jones, Ludwig von Beethoven, and Charles de Gaulle, who for a second I thought was Alfred Hitchcock. Here's Louis Tussaud. He was the great grandson of Marie Tussaud. He says here he founded the Marie Tussaud's Wax Museum chain, but there's also a separate wax museum chain named after him, the Louis Tussaud's Wax Museums, that are owned by Ripley's Entertainment. And here is the man the whole city is named after, St. Augustine. You see that he is holding a heart in his hand there. So he has full title, St. Augustine of Hippo, which I really like that. I like to think maybe he is the patron saint of hippopotamuses. Of course, that's just pure silliness, and St. Augustine knows that I'm just making a joke there. Here we have a pressed penny machine. You can get pressed pennies made of Elvis Presley, Jack Sparrow, or Harry Potter. Irony there, you know, Potter's Wax Museum, Harry Potter, not the same thing. But it's kind of a funny gag, anyways. Of course, if you want a Carpetbagger smash penny, all you have to do is go to the Etsy shop in the description of this video. All right, gotta take a look at some Renaissance men in here. Here's Anthony Van Dyke. Notice that he's got a very specific style of facial hair. I wonder if that is what the Van Dyke style of facial hair. I wonder if he's who that was named after. One of the artists that inspired the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Michelangelo. Cowabunga, dude. And the leader of the Ninja Turtles, Leonardo da Vinci. Watch out, this man knows how to use a katana. This is famed cowboy Will Rogers. See, he's got his saddle and his lariat there. You know, Will Rogers' horse Trigger is taxidermied and exists somewhere, but I have still not been able to locate it. This here, you can tell by the hat, is Davy Crockett. You know, he killed him a bear when he was only 3 years old. And for some reason, I always get this man and Davy Crockett confused. This is Daniel Boone. I think it's because they wore the same kind of hat. I think that's why I get him confused. And honestly, I still get confused on who did what. Got a cheerful bartender there. He's wiping down the counter. Spittoon on the floor. And you see Annie Oakley ready to hock a big loogie into said spittoon. This here, Buffalo Bill, famous for the Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Very, very important man, Louis Pasteur. He is the man responsible for the fact that you don't have botulism and rabies right at this moment. Famed spaceman, Neil Armstrong. Here's Sam Houston, the man that Houston, Texas is named after. He helped make Texas part of the USA. Here are our founding fathers. And man, Nathan Hale has some just piercing blue eyes right there. Who's this sitting down here in front? We have Thomas Jefferson and one of my favorites, old Ben Franklin here. He was a real hoot. Here is Andrew Jackson next to Abraham Lincoln. Of course, his wife Mary Todd Lincoln, unfortunately, had a really hard time dealing with her husband's death. Her husband died, her children died. She had a really, really rough go of things. Leave a comment in the comment section. Who is your favorite Roosevelt? Teddy Roosevelt or FDR? I think they're both wonderful in their own special ways, but let me know who you think the superior Roosevelt is. There's George W. Bush. You can tell they really captured, you know, that little smirk, that little George W. smirk right there. Captured perfectly in wax. There's Gerald Ford, the only unelected president, so I don't know who invited him to this party. There we have Richard Nixon, who just looks really, really cheerful and happy, which is surprising given that his presidency ended in massive scandal and shame. We have Lyndon Johnson, a very interesting president. His wife, Lady Bird. That name has always been fascinating to me. We need to bring the name Lady Bird back. Here's a chart telling you which presidents are which. Unfortunately, JFK is out at the spa. Thomas Alva Edison. I know at the old location for the museum, he was holding a light bulb in his hand, but they've replaced it with one of his wax recordings. Here is Henry Ford, man who invented the first affordable automobile, and a man of very questionable personal beliefs. Here's Wilbur Wright, one of the men that helped invent the airplane. Where the heck is Orville? A notoriously smart man, Albert Einstein. See Elvis Presley there, ready to start belting out one of his tunes on that microphone. What English king had 6 wives, 2 of whom will be beheaded? Henry VIII? I am. Yes. See, I know stuff about world history. Here is Jefferson Davis, the one and only president of the Confederate States of America. Here's Franz Liszt. He was a Hungarian pianist, lived from 1811 to 1886. I've heard that he is actually known as the first rock star, one of the first performers to just have absolute insane fan support. I really like how this is set up here. We have Ray Charles, the famous blind pianist, and Ludwig van Beethoven, and they're both playing on the same piano together. I think that's really cool. There we have Brittany. Leave her alone, I guess. Uh-oh. Looks like the Union is outnumbered at all those Confederates. Sir Francis Drake, a very famous early pirate. What American pastor became an inspiring civil rights leader and gave the now famous speech, I Have a Dream? That's pretty easy. That's Martin Luther King Jr. Which female American sharpshooter starred in the Buffalo Bill Wild West shows? I think that's Annie Oakley that we saw earlier. Yep. What Roman general is credited with laying the foundation for the Roman Empire? I came, I saw, I conquered. Is it Alexander the Great? No, that was bad. I'm sorry, Julius Caesar. I'm such an idiot. Okay, but here's what I know. German-born Jewish physicist developed the theory of relativity, none other than Albert Einstein. Gotta see if we can tell who these faces are just by looking at and touching them. I'm drawing a blank on that one. Johnny Depp. Yeah, you can kind of tell. Let's try this. I think this is Val Kilmer, but he's got very distinct lips. Val Kilmer? I recognize Val Kilmer's lips. Okay, and who's this? I think it's someone of Asian descent. Bruce Lee? Yes. Probably one of the most famous explorers here in the St. Augustine region. Ponce de Leon, famed for the Fountain of Youth that he discovered in this area that has given all the locals eternal life. Heading through the World War II corridor. Oh, got the bad guys over here. Good guys on this side. There's Winston Churchill, Charles de Gaulle, FDR. That's the second FDR here. Look at that big old cigar he's got hanging out of his mouth. And then Bernard Montgomery, Douglas MacArthur, and George Patton. On the villain side, we have Hideki Tojo, representing Japan, Joseph Stalin, representing Russia, Adolf Hitler, the evil man, most evil man of all time, representing Nazi Germany, Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator of Italy. Now, let's play a game. Which one of these do not belong? These are all incredibly evil men, but one of these incredibly evil men was not on this side of the war, did not fight with the other three. He was actually on this side with the good guys. Despite being a bad man, he was not on this side. Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin was our ally during World War II, so I'm not sure why they have him pose here with the villains of World War II. What English author wrote Oliver Twist and Great Expectations? Please, sir, I want some more. Is that Charles Dickens? Yes. Not only do we have the severed head of Tom Sawyer, we got Huckleberry Finn as well. Who's this happy little guy? Some famous authors here in the literature section. We got Mr. Shakespeare there in the back. Here we have Mark Twain, also known as Samuel Clemens. Over here, that is Charles Dickens right there. I didn't even know what he looked like, to be honest. There we have Ernest Hemingway, famed cat enthusiast. We have Princess Diana there, just casting kind of a side glance. Here we have French royalty back there, Mr. Napoleon Dynamite, along with his girlfriend or wife, Josephine Bonaparte. And over here, King Louis and Marie Antoinette. Uh-oh. Watch your head. Famed Native American chief here in Florida, Osceola. Here is some figures from the Middle Ages, including right here we have Joan of Arc, one of the most important teenage girls in all of world history. Alright, let's knock these out. Who was awarded the first U.S. patent for the telephone? Alexander Graham Bell. Bam. What Polish composer was known as the poet of the piano? Mozart? No, I didn't know that. What American botanist, born a slave, vetted 300 years for the peanut? George Washington Carver. Yes. Who was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize for her work on radioactivity. Marie Curie, of course. Wow. You can see the various eyeballs littered around down there. And I love this figure right here. This is a Jekyll and Hyde. So that's Dr. Jekyll right there. But as we rotate around, see that there's two ears. And there is the horrifying Mr. Hyde growing out of the back of his head. Alright, hold on to your children and pregnant ladies, because we're about to head into the Chamber of Horrors. Here is the mummy. Very, very spooky. Now this is an interesting local story. This is Andrew Ranson. He was a pirate who was hung, but when the rope snapped around his neck and he remained living, they moved him into the prison because you're only allowed to hang someone once. And he later lived a long life after he was rescued by an attack on St. Augustine by South Carolina. Here is Frankenstein, the famed monster made from dead body parts. Yes, known as Frankenstein. His father was a scientist who also had the last name of Frankenstein. Good to see Frankenstein, the monster, recognized in Omax Museum. Always been a big fan of Frankenstein. This is the creature from the Black Lagoon, one of the coolest designs of any monster. Here's another ghoulish local legend, the one of Sim Jackson. He was a criminal that was hung, but he agreed to take part in a academic science experiment, and they would ask him questions after he was hung, and he would give signals showing that he could understand what they were saying, and he was able to answer questions and live for 14 minutes after being hung and having his neck broken. It's a feel-good story. One more legend. This is the legend of Captain Abela and his lover Dolores Marti. He was the leader of Castillo de San Marcos, the fort here in town, and this was his young lover. They both mysteriously vanished until 50 years later. They were found boarded up behind a wall, chained together. Very creepy. Despite what it may look like, this is not Frankenstein. It's Herman Munster, who I believe was a distant cousin. Who was the best-selling solo artist in history of recorded music? We're going to say Mr. Elvis. Yeah, Elvis. Here is their Star Wars section. Some of the beloved characters: Darth Vader, C-3PO, Watto, the flying winged slave trader, and of course little Anakin Skywalker, and his best friend Jar Jar Binks. I'm not the most versed on European history, so I'll just quickly show off some of these famous European rich people. Yeah, here's Henry VIII. He liked eating turkey legs and killing his wives, from what I understand. See some random, slightly creepy stuff up here on the shelf next to the laboratorium. And here we head into the modern section. There's Walt Disney with his most famed creation, Mickey Mouse. Not entirely sure why he's wearing a pith helmet, but I do like the look. We got Johnny Depp, famed for his role as Captain Jack Sparrow. Here we have the world's greatest basketball player and world's most competitive man, Michael Jordan. Here is Tiger Woods, a famed golf person. And Michael Myers in his dual role as Austin Powers and Dr. Evil. He's got his pinky in his mouth, and what does he say? $1 billion. Merry Christmas, Kramer. Merry Christmas, George. Here's some of the old heads here on display. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Robert De Niro, an extra Teddy Roosevelt, extra Benjamin Franklin, Sandra Bullock next to Sleeping Beauty, then Michael Jackson, Jerry Seinfeld. That's an interesting combination. Then Elaine from Seinfeld, John Travolta, Nicolas Cage, not the bees, not the bees. Oh, behind him is the outline of his father-in-law, Elvis Presley. It's Winston Churchill, Charlemagne over there. There's John C. Calhoun, and injured Abraham Lincoln. I guess this is what his face looks like after he was shot in the head. You can see he's just not feeling too great. Moliere, Jefferson Davis, Pope Paul VI, some other popes over here. Martin Luther King Jr. See, they have their own little working wax laboratory back here where they can construct figures. Got Jean Harlow there. Oh yeah, remember the JFK was going to the spa. Well, I guess the spa involved having his head chopped off and repainted. See some heads in different stages of repair or disrepair. That is Alice from Alice in Wonderland. Here we have a very classic Santa Claus. He is looking at me like I am naughty. Here's a head that is kind of halfway finished, half unfinished. You kind of see the process of putting makeup and eyeballs on them. Here's a closet for wax figures, different outfits and uniforms to dress the wax figures in. So down here we have different pieces of jewelry to adorn them. And Rambo himself, he's got some pretty brutal scars there on his chest. I'm not sure who this is. Appreciate you joining me here at Potter's Wax Museum. Always good to check out old classic wax museums because they are a dying breed. So good to know that the oldest wax museum is still in operation here in St. Augustine. If you'd like to see other wax museums I've been to, as well as amusement parks, roadside attractions, and other fun things, please check the interactive map in the description. If you'd like to help support the channel, consider buying a t-shirt, consider donating to Patreon. A $3 or more donation will get you a postcard once a month. I'm also now selling Smash Pennies in my Etsy shop. All that information is in the description, but until next time, this one's in the bag.